this tutorial, we'll see how to set up an AppWrap server, then we'll see how to configure the multiplayer variables, and finally we'll check the package tutorial. The first step consists on going to this web and creating an AppWrap account. Accessing the address, you will be able to start your free trial. By clicking here, you'll be able to register with your email address and your personal information and request a demo. Once you register, you are able to go to the main page. The main page looks like this. You have the app manager, then the room manager. The first thing we have to do is to create an app. To create an app, click on App Manager and then Create App. Let's call it FPS _ multiplayer. Then you have to select the zone. In my case, it's Europe. The organization name will be Cardboard Bodies, and the description is not necessary here, but it will be a multiplayer FPS game. If special characters are not allowed, please delete them and use regular letters. And then you can see that we have generated an API key and a secret key. This information will be used in the second part of the tutorial. Then we have to create different rooms for this app. The idea is to create 3 different rooms. So let's create static rooms called containers. The maximum users will be 12 and the owner name will be Cardboard Bodies. We have to create 2 more rooms. Let's wait for it. The second room will be futuristic. The max number of users will be the same and the owner name will be the same. And finally, we'll add another room that is going to be also static, but in this case it's going to be called beach. The number of users will be 12 and the owner name will be the same. Now, once we have created the 3 rooms, we need to get the different information about the different rooms. So in this case, we go to containers and we have to write down. So in this case will be 17, 89, 21, 79, 58. Then we have to go back and write down the name of the futuristic one. That is going to be 70 in 10, 70, 17, 68. And finally we go to the beach map, and in this case it's going to be 17, 59, 89, 36, 52. With this information, we are able to get to the second part of the tutorial. Once you have configured the AppWrap server, it's time to configure the different API keys, secret keys, and the different room IDs. So to do that, you can go to your AppWrap server information for your app manager values in settings and copy these values here, copy it into your API key and copy the second values into your secret key and write down the different values for the containers, the futuristic and the beach maps. So if you hit play and you hit the connection button here, you will be able to see if the server is receiving the response from our PC. Then if you hit here the different maps, you will be able to update the number of players that are connected. In this case 0 players for the containers, futuristic 02, and beach also set to 0 players. If you hit join, you will be able to join the server and start sending messages to the different players that are connected. This is the last part of the tutorial in which we're going to show how the dynamics of the package work. We have two different game objects that are going to correspond to the different sub-scenes that we have in our game. The first is going to be the lobby scene here, and then we have the game scene. The lobby scene will be the main part of the game in which the user is going to introduce the name of the player, is going to connect to the server, and is going to check the different rooms. So in this case, you can see that the name is created in a random way, but we can change it and put it cardboard bodies 01, for example, or player 1. It will be easier. Once we have established this, we can hit the button connect as we saw in the previous part of the tutorial, and then we have the option to select different maps. So we have to understand that we have added a customized head and body for the player, and you can change it by clicking the different arrows here. So we have 3 different heads and 3 different bodies. Those information are sent to the server too, which is going to create different players with that configuration. So for example, if we select the map container here and we hit join, this will be the actual skin of our player 1. Another thing you have to consider whenever you are making the game is that you have a variable in the multiplayer AppWarp code that is called the interval. The interval is really important because it's going to give us the time that is going to pass between one message to another message. In this case, we're going to set it to 2, so you can see the diff, or to 3, because we want just to send specific messages to show the customer how the different information is sent to the server. So another thing you can do is build this game too. Okay, so let's build it so we can open 2 different instances of the game, and we can talk a little bit about the dynamics of the multiplayer game. So if I open here an instance of the game, okay, so we have this one that will be the player 1, and this at the right that is going to be the player 2. So I'm going to name it player 2 with a 2 before and a 2 after, and here I'm going to name it player 1 2, and we're going to connect to the server in both cases, and we see that we have connected. And now you're going to see something interesting, that is, whenever I click here, you can see that we want to connect to the container map, and we join. Okay, so you can see that I'm able to move in the space in the map, and I'm sending the coordinates of my position, and I'm sending also the head, body, and weapon state, and my health. Okay, so this is for the instance in the right. Now we are going to go and connect the player 1 to the same server. So you can see that now we have one player connected, that is going to be the player 2. Okay, so that appears here too. Let's maximize this so you can see it better. Okay, so we have connected to this, we want to connect to this room, and now we can see that we have two different messages sent by two different players. We have the player 2 that is sending this movement, and the player 1 that is this player here at the left that is sending the other movement. Now I'm going to move in order to see the other player so I can explain different things. Okay, so we have the two players facing each other, and now okay, I'm going to start doing different things like shooting. Whenever we shoot, we are also sending another message that's going to be shoot 1, that is the value for the shooting event, and then the position of the bullet. Okay, so whenever we hit the opponent, it will take some damage and it will reduce its health, as you can see here at the right. The reloading event is also sent to the server, so whenever I reload my weapon, the server sends it to the different clients that are going to update the information too. If I change the weapon type, this is also sent as an event to the server, and if I change it again to another different weapon, it will also update in a certain time. This is because it is sent with the movement event that is updated in the interval we have set at the beginning. If you want to make it more realistic or faster, so you have a more realistic FPS multiplayer and real-time game, you have to reduce that interval to the maximum possible. That is going to be 0.2, 0.3 seconds. The next thing we can talk about is the skins. So I'm going to kill one of the players. I'm going to kill the player at the right, and you can see at the top that appears player 1 killed player 2, and that makes the player 2 leave the room. So now I'm going to add another time the player to the room, but with a different skin, so you can see that the skin is also updated into the game. So now we have this player, which is player 2 again, but has a different skin. And if it starts shooting, our main player, that's going to be player 1, is going to send another message to the server and say player 2 killed player 1. Okay, let's talk about the movement of the player. The player can move in different configurations, which are the ground or the containers, which have a ground element on top. So whenever we are on the ground, we're able to jump, we're able to move, and the movement of the player has a consequence on the, as you can see here on the crosshair, there's going to change its sides, which simulates the problems related to the aiming effect. Then if you hit the right button of your mouse, you are able to set the aiming event, which is going to allow you to improve your aiming. Whenever you shoot, the the crosshair is also going to expand. If you hit the 2 button, the 2 number of your numpad, you are able to change your weapon to your secondary weapon. That is going to work similarly to the first weapon with the reloading event. And if you hit 1 again, you are able to change your weapons from 1 to 2. So that's the main idea. As you can see, the weapons have different reloading effects, have different clip sizes, and that's what we're going to see now. So let's go to the lobby scene and explain a little bit the different code that is inside. We have the player selection, and in the player selection we have the head and the body materials, which are obtained by clicking on the different arrows in front of the player. Then these game objects here adjust, as you can see here, the different buttons that are used and the buttons for connection and disconnection. So I think the lobby scene is pretty clear. It's really easy to understand. It's just initial scene in which you are able to select what you want to display into the server. The multiplayer AppWarp code has the different parameters we have added in order to make the server receive the information of the room's request. But then we have also different parameters that are going to change during the gameplay. For example, we have the player eye and the player eye head. So these are the game objects that are created whenever a player is connected. So we have a prefab that is called player eye, and the player eye here is going to be instantiated into our scene whenever a player is connected. Let's see it in an example. Whenever we hit play and player 1 connect to a server, okay, and then connect to a room, you see that we don't have any players at the moment. But if we go to this instantiate of the game and connect to the server, we can see that in this case a player icon has been created, and in fact the player eye clone is in the exact same position as in the instantiate here, as you can see here. So whenever we go and add a third player in another instantiate of our game, let's write here 3player 3 and connect to the server, you will see that we have now 2 players in the server, and the player icon here has been created. So you have 2 player icons clones here that correspond to the different players. Okay, so now it's shooting, player clone, and now it's reloading. Okay, so that is how the multiplayer AppWarp code works. We have here the player Y and the player head of each of the player clones. Then we have the number of players, the total number of players. That doesn't count the main player that is going to be here. So in fact what this variable here counts is the number of connected players without counting the main plane. And then in the connected players we have the names of the different connected players, which are player 2 and player 3. and we have the value of the health in each and the weapons. So for example, if I move my main player, that's going to be the one of Unity, and I'm going to shoot at an enemy, we see that in this case the value of the health has been reduced to 70, to 31, etc. And it's going to be updated in function of time. Okay. So the lobby scene has been deactivated, as you can see, whenever we start the game. And inside the game, we activate the environment that is going to be the map type 0, 1, or 2 in function of where we are. So for example, I'm going to close the different enemies. You can see that whenever I close the different scenes for the different enemies, the clones here disappear, and as well as the elements here disappear. As you can see that we have missing elements, which are the ones that were not in the game now. And if I close this and I go to another map, you will see that the game scene now activates the map type 1. So that's done thanks to the map manager, and in this case we have the map type set to 1, that is going to be the type 1. If this was set to 0, it will enable the map type 0, etc. Another thing is that whenever I shoot, those bullets are created inside this bullet container, as you can see here. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the scripts. The scripts are divided into first the AppWarp scripts that are going to be the one that is used here. There is going to be the AppWarp main script, and then we have the listener. The listener, it's just a script that is going to be called whenever a function is returning a value. So for example, let's go to a line of code that is important. That is going to be this one here, on chat received. So on chat received, you can see that we are checking if the message has a movement, a shoot, a reload, or a kill. So those messages here are being filtered and used in the game. So for example, if we have the movement, that is going to be the message move, then we go to the wrap code, that is going to be this one here, and in the listen function we were calling the move player y. So the move player here. The move player has a sender, x, y, z, and the rotations of the head, the body type, the head type, the weapon, and the health. So that is all used in this part of the script in order to configure the movement of the player y, and also check the different stages and states of the different players of the game. Then we have the bullet script that is really easy to understand. In fact, it's just a rigid body that has a velocity that is set to forward, as you can see here. And the main aspect of the bullet is that whenever it collides, it's here, this is the collision, has a collision bullet, and the collision bullet means that the game is going to be destroyed, and is going to create a particle effect, as you can see here. Okay, so that's all regarding the bullet. Then we have the selectors for the map and the player that is going to be in the lobby script, as you can see here. Then for the map, we have the map manager that I have also explained. And then we have the camera movement, the player health, the player movement, the weapon manager, and the weapon shooting. So those are all scripts that are related to the player. Let's open the player movement, for example, in order to show what happens. In this case, we are just filtering the information of our input and using that information in order to move our player and the player head. Okay? Then we have the player eye. So in the player eye, we have the weapon manager and the weapon player. That is used in order to show the animations of the changing the weapons to the main or the secondary weapon. And then we have the waves here. The waves script is used in the map number 3. That is this one here. I'm going to show it to you right now. Here we have the waves script that is changing the vertex of a mesh. As you can see here, the mesh is going to move in order to simulate that we have water. So that's that script. And then we have the destroy after time and the spawn points. The spawn points here is used to say when and where the player is going to be created whenever it connects to the server. So this is more or less all regarding this package. Hope you like it. I hope you consider downloading it and buying and supporting